In 1926, a man with one of the highest IQs in history died broke and alone. Why? Well, because intelligence is actually a trap if you don't have this one specific trait.
Yeah, it's wild to think about. You can have a Ferrari engine for a brain, but, if the exhaust is clogged, you're not going anywhere.
Exactly. And if you're obsessed with the why behind human success, you are in the right place. Hit subscribe and turn on that bell to join the Insight Lab. We drop deep dives like this every week to help you outsmart the average. Now, let's get into the data.
Let's do it.
So, most people think hard work is the answer. It's really not. Today, we're breaking down the intelligence paradox and why your brain might actually be your own worst enemy.
Right, because we have this whole hustle culture mythology where we just trade our biological hardware for like a few extra hours of output, but we totally ignore the fact that the quality of that work is just tanking.
Yeah, outthinking the competition is the actual game now. The most valuable piece of real estate you own isn't your portfolio, right? It's that 3 pounds of tissue sitting between your ears.
Exactly. And if that tissue is compromised, your ability to outthink anyone just vanishes. But it's funny how people try to fix this. Like the second they feel their mental edge slipping, they usually reach for synthetic solutions.
Oh, like smart drugs. Or spending $2,000 on some wearable ring, hoping to gadget their way out of being exhausted.
Which is the worst approach. The underlying biology does not care about your gadgets. It's like trying to put premium aviation fuel into a car with a blocked exhaust pipe. The engine is going to choke.
Right.
Which brings us to the actual foundation of cognitive optimization, which the research identifies as glymphatic detoxification.
Glymphatic detox. Okay, it sounds very clinical. What is that actually doing in the brain?
Well, thinking is a metabolic process. So every time your neurons fire, they generate waste, a specific byproduct called beta amyloid. I mean, think of it as the metabolic ash left over from a burning fire.
Metabolic ash. Okay, got it. So it just builds up while I'm working.
Yeah, exactly. Throughout the day, as you make decisions and analyze data, this ash is just piling up in the spaces between your brain cells. Your brain becomes increasingly toxic.
Wow.
And the glymphatic system is the mechanism that clears this out. But it only activates under very specific conditions.
And this is the part from the source that completely blew my mind. I always thought of sleep as just turning off the computer, just a passive state.
Right, most people do.
But the physical architecture of the brain actually changes. When you enter deep sleep, your brain cells literally shrink in size.
They do. They shrink by up to 60%.
Yeah.
And by physically reducing their footprint, they dramatically widen the streets of the brain, so to speak.
So the street sweepers can finally get in there. But how does the fluid move? There isn't a heart for cerebrospinal fluid.
It's driven by your actual heartbeat. During deep sleep, the expansion and contraction of your blood vessels acts like a pump. It drives this massive tide of fluid into those widened channels, washes away the beta amyloid ash, and flushes it out.
Okay, so let's connect this back to you listening right now. When you pull an all-nighter to perfect your presentation, you are physically blocking that cellular shrinkage.
Right, you're locking the streets down.
Exactly. The fluid can't wash away the ash. You wake up and your brain is basically swimming in metabolic waste.
And the data shows this leads to an immediate drop in decision-making speed. But even more critically, your emotional intelligence just tanks.
Which is so expensive in a professional setting. You lack the agility to read a room and you make strategic mistakes.
It's the absolute opposite of return on investment.
Okay, so I get the sleep part, the brain is clean. But when I wake up, how do I actually focus? Because the attention economy right now is just brutal. Notifications everywhere.
That's the real challenge. Yeah. To get true neuro-efficiency, we have to look at the basal ganglia. It's a deep brain structure responsible for habit formation and automatic behaviors. Basically, your brain's autopilot.
Okay, but let me push back on this a bit. Everyone talks about hacking the flow state, but I can't just trigger that on command when I sit down and have like 500 urgent emails screaming at me. Willpower doesn't work.
Oh, willpower is the absolute worst tool for the job. Willpower is finite. It requires your prefrontal cortex to actively suppress distractions, which burns an immense amount of energy.
So what's the biohacker alternative then?
It's called a contextual anchor. You bypass willpower entirely by using sensory triggers to speak directly to the basal ganglia.
A contextual anchor, like what the source mentioned with those 40 hertz binaural beats.
Exactly. Why 40 hertz? Because it corresponds to gamma brainwaves. Those are associated with peak concentration and complex problem solving.
So when I listen to that frequency, I'm forcing my brain's internal rhythm to match the external rhythm.
Yes, it's a phenomenon called the frequency following response. But visual anchors are actually equally powerful.
Oh, the blue light desk lamp protocol. I absolutely love that part.
It's brilliant, right?
Yeah, so the concept is you buy a specific lamp, maybe it has a cold blue light, and you put it on your desk. But the rule is you only turn it on for intense cognitive tasks.
Right. No checking social media, no casual emails under that light.
Only financial modeling or deep writing.
And the mechanism driving that is neuroplasticity. You repeatedly pair the visual stimulus of the blue light with intense focus, and your brain hardwires a connection.
It's basically Pavlovian conditioning, but weaponized for executive function.
That's a highly accurate way to frame it. The basal ganglia sees the light and just automatically drops you into focus mode. It completely eliminates mental friction.
Mental friction being that awful 20 minutes where you just stare at a blank screen and negotiate with yourself.
Exactly. And struggling like that burns glucose. Glucose is your brain's primary currency. By using the anchor, you save all that metabolic energy for actually solving the problem.
Which brings up a really critical transition. Running your brain in this hyper-focused flow state, it has to burn a ton of energy, right?
Massive amounts.
So how do we physically fuel this machine without crashing at 2 in the afternoon?
That's where most ambitious professionals completely self-sabotage. We view food as just a way to stop being hungry, not as the literal chemical building blocks of our cognitive hardware. We need to talk about mitochondria.
Right. And let's ditch that old high school biology phrase, the powerhouse of the cell. The source used a much better analogy. The mitochondria are like a massive, high-density server farm inside your brain.
I love that analogy because it introduces thermal throttling. When a server farm overheats or gets clogged with degraded hardware, the whole network slows down to prevent a crash.
So when I feel that heavy brain fog after lunch, my servers are sputtering.
Exactly. It's rarely a lack of motivation. It is very often mitochondrial dysfunction.
So to fix the servers, the research talks about the profit diet. And the crazy thing is, it's less about what you eat and entirely about when you don't eat.
Right. Intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
The biology here is profound. When you abstain from calories, you introduce a mild hormetic stress. This triggers mitophagy.
Mitophagy being the cellular cleanup, throwing out the bad servers.
Exactly. The cell dismantles old, inefficient mitochondria and recycles them. But the second thing fasting does is dramatically increase brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF.
The miracle grow for your neuron. I mean, the visual is great, but why does starving make my brain grow? It seems backward.
You have to look at evolutionary biology. If our ancestors were starving, their brains could not afford to get sluggish. If they lost their edge, they died.
Oh, wow.
So the stress of hunger evolved to trigger this flood of BDNF. It sharpens cognition and increases focus so they could track down their next meal.
That is incredible. By fasting, you are chemically forcing your brain into a state of hyper-adaptability right before a big meeting.
You're leveraging ancient survival architecture. But, eventually you have to break the fast. You have to provide raw material.
Right, because the brain is 60% fat. So the quality of the fat you eat literally dictates the quality of your hardware. The source draws a hard line here between a budget brain and a premium brain.
It's all about the cellular membrane. Every neuron is encased in a cell wall made of fat. If you eat cheap, processed seed oils, you supply your brain with inflammatory materials.
And what happens to a cell wall built out of cheap fat?
It stiffens. It becomes rigid. Neurotransmitters struggle to bind to the receptors, and signals get delayed.
Like trying to run AI software on a dial-up connection.
Exactly. You need premium building materials, specifically high-quality omega-3s, like DHA.
Because they stay fluid, right?
Right. They make the neuronal cell walls incredibly flexible. Neurotransmitters pass back and forth with zero friction. It upgrades the network to fiber optic broadband.
So we aren't just saying intelligence isn't everything. We want to give you an actionable framework. Let's call it the Insight Lab Protocol, a 3-step mental check you can use tomorrow.
Love it.
Step 1 is the glymphatic clear. Protect your deep sleep so your brain cells can physically shrink and wash away that toxic beta amyloid ash.
Step 2 is the contextual anchor. Pick a specific sensory trigger, like a blue light or 40 Hz audio, and pair it exclusively with deep work. Bypass that mental friction entirely.
And step 3 is premium fueling. Use intermittent fasting to trigger that evolutionary BDNF spike and build your cellular hardware with high-quality omega-3s.
It's a complete reevaluation of professional development. Brain optimization is a baseline competitive necessity now.
So if you realized your IQ is a trap, you're only halfway there, because the way you sleep actually determines if you can use that IQ at all. Watch our breakdown on the billionaire sleep myth right here to complete the puzzle.
Keep questioning the world around you.
And stay curious.